Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Banking on Experience. I'm your host, James Gilbert. Really excited about this episode today because probably one of the funnest articles I've ever read. The author we have today. We're going to be talking about a myriad of topics today, so stay tuned. Hey everyone, thank you for joining Banking on Experience podcast. Today I'm joined by a guest who writes quite a few articles for CUInsight. Her name's Nanci Wilson. Nanci, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thanks for having me. My name is Nanci Wilson. I live in North Dakota, don't you know? I am the marketing and outreach gal for University Federal Credit Union. We serve UND here, so Fighting Hawks, yay.
Love to have you, Nanci. I got to say, when I read your articles on CUInsight, you literally had me laughing out loud with some of the things that you were saying. The first article I read was actually, it's titled, I coughed at the grocery store. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I did. I coughed at the grocery store. At a time that you don't want to cough in the grocery store, I coughed in the grocery store.
Yeah, it's so interesting how, our everyday life has changed and how the judgment of what happens, like when you make a little decision. I mean, so not to get too personal or anything like that, but I have a heart condition, so I actually can't wear a mask, and it's tough when I go into these grocery stores or go to these other places, and like people really hate me for it. And I'm like, look, if I could wear one, I would. I was like, I could get you a doctor note if you want, but it's just interesting because I think that credit unions also are dealing with this idea of, they also have to figure out how to make sure that they're safe within their environment. So let's work off that mask idea a little bit. How can credit unions make sure that, number one, they don't invade people's personal decision to do that? And number two, making sure that their employees are safe and feel safe in that environment?
Well, I really think short of having your doctor's note screen printed on your t-shirt that you wear outside, you really just have to go with what you are able to do. I mean, I've seen a lot of people without masks where masks are mandated. And I've even found myself going, hey, where is your mask? In my head, not out loud. But it's just one of those, I have to wear it, why don't you have to wear it type of things. And that's really where we as credit union folks can dig deeper into our empathy bowl and know that there are other things going on in other people's lives. We don't know everyone's stories. It's easy to judge when you're not in those people's shoes. I myself, without getting too personal, have a blood clotting disorder in my legs. So sometimes I do park in handicapped spots. It just depends on the weather. My legs kind of go with the weather. I know that sounds weird, but it does. And I've had horrible comments to me because I can walk and I'm getting out of a car and parking closer. I've really had to get a thick skin for that. Because at first I felt like I needed to tell everybody my history, my medical history. Here, hang on one second. Let me go through this with you. They don't care. So I really have just really started to just smile at people and walk on. And sometimes that's just the key. As credit union folks, we need to understand there's more to the story than what we see. We deal with that every day with people that are coming in and needing our assistance financially. Why can't we feel that way on the outside of the financial walls and just understand that there's other things going on? So I really think it's just key in letting your staff know that some people are going to feel comfortable, some people aren't. We see people in our credit union that come in fully masked, some with masks and gloves, and that's their prerogative. We also have put up screens for our tellers and things like that to make them feel safer if someone were to cough like I did in the grocery store. So I think we're doing the best we can, but we have to remember outside these walls to do the best we can too.
I love it. One of the favorite articles of mine that I read of yours on CUInsight was Grow the Heck Out of Here. I want to talk about this article because this is actually what I wanted to essentially base the topic around this episode is as a leader, growing people and not being afraid to let them grow outside of where they're at. So let's talk about that a little bit. First of all, how did you come up with the idea to write this article?
Well, I know it was so funny because I wrote it, and I wrote it from the friend aspect. Let's be honest, it was me. So I had a lot of people reach out to me and go, "Ooh, your friend." And I'm like, okay, so I'm busted. It was me. And it really got me thinking. I was in a credit union that really, they helped me grow. They helped me find my passion. They sent me to credit union development education through NCUF, which changed my whole perspective. I don't know if you've heard of CUDE, but it was an amazing experience that kind of, the light bulb went off. And I thought, oh my gosh, who I am as a person really intermingles with the credit union movement. And this insatiable passion was bloomed from that. And I'm so grateful for that, absolutely grateful for that. But there came a time where there was an opportunity for me to take that leap of faith. And I wrote this wonderful gratitude letter of all the things that they had helped me realize as a person, as a professional, as a person in the credit union movement. And I was met with crickets. And it made me start thinking, if we're breaking up with our employees all wrong, they took it very personal that I left. And I've realized in different situations where I've watched other people grow the heck out of their position, we do tend to take it personally because we help these people mold and grow and find their vision. But there has to be a little bit of grace in there too, where we are the proud mom and dads that go off and do wonderful things, my child. And it's okay to let people grow too without making them feel guilty.
Yeah, I take I don't know if it's a unique approach to this, but every single time I've came in and started managing a team, whether I got to grow it myself or just came in and started owning it, what I find is there's a lot of people, especially from the marketing side, that are put into roles and they just feel stuck. They feel like they can't grow out of it. They feel like, oh, well, I used to enjoy this 5 years ago. Now I don't. I enjoy something completely different. So I do an exercise with my teams when I'm brand new to a position where I have one-on-ones with everyone. And I ask them point blank, what do you love doing and what do you hate doing from a marketing perspective? And it blows my mind. I mean, I would have designers that would typically just be doing design that were like, I don't like doing design and I've been doing it for 10 years and I really want to get into data and analytics. And I'm like, whoa, two ends of the spectrum, but let's do it. Here we go. Right. So I think that there's also the ability to be able to manage people and understand that just because they're in a role and a position, it doesn't mean that you can't get more in a different area or allow them to explore in different areas, because that to me is how the creativity happens within a team.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I started out as a teller. I was new to the credit union movement simply because my credit union treated me nicely in a time of need. I, in turn, really wanted to do that for someone else. So when my credit union had an opening, I was like, I'm going to apply. I had no financial background. I actually worked in radio and talked way too much about Justin Bieber to feel okay with my own life. This was a really big change for me. So I started out as a teller, ended up going to DE, and then worked my way up to teller manager. And then I became director of training and education for the credit union, which I loved. There was nothing about it that I didn't really love, but my creativity was a little stifled there. I felt just a little trapped in that education role where I couldn't tap into my creativity as much as I really desired to. So when an opportunity came for me to go into marketing, I about tripped on my yes. I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. I'm glad I did. Sometimes you have to take those leaps of faith, and now I'm surrounded by creativity every day, all day long, and I love every second of it. So you have to take those leaps of faith, and not everybody's going to understand when you do that, or maybe your reasoning for doing that. But I always say, if you're going to leave something, leave it grateful. And that's like a gift that you can leave on their doorstep. You know, you did the right thing. Whether they open it and accept it is their journey, not yours.
Ooh, I like that. It's funny because I actually was not going to have a lot of experience in marketing unless I had managers that allowed me to kind of expand my role, right? So when I very first started off in marketing, I would have just been stuck in writing. And if anyone knows me or has known me, I'm not a good writer. And I admit it. Like I've gotten to this level, not because of my writing skills. Like, sure, I know how to tell a story. I know how to put framework together and do strategy for marketing, but I definitely am not a writer. So I would have been stuck trying to figure out writing. That wasn't where my brain was. My brain was more in data and analytics. So I had managers that they were like, you know what, we need somebody to own this. James, can you own that? So I would own it, right? And then I would start presenting to leadership and I would start teaching them about analytics. And this was before there was a big boom in the analytics industry. And that actually projected my career to be where I'm at today, where I'm leading marketing teams at huge companies. So it's not one of those things where it just develops a pathway for employees to get to where they actually really want to be much quicker. And a lot of times us as leaders, we get in the way of that.
Absolutely. And we forget that we've laid the foundation for them to feel secure enough to jump from. And I think that's pride. And why not take pride in that rather than be angry at them for growing, especially if they're leaving with gratitude and they're leaving with a thankful heart. There's no reason not to pat them on the back and wish them well. And that's really what that article was about is are we breaking up with our employees wrong that are leaving the right way and wanting to grow and feeling safe enough to grow? That really is something that those companies, those jump off companies can feel proud about, that they gave that stability for that employee to feel like they could fly.
And I do think it's important. It can't be on the surface. Like you could send out a company-wide email and say, oh, we want to thank this person for their time and blah, blah, blah. But then you don't even ever talk to them again, literally ever. Like, come on, that's not how to do it. Like you got to be better than that. That's for sure. So I want to talk about one of your other articles, and I want you to frame it up, tell the story. Why did you write the article Sunshine Through the Walls?
Well, I think, typically my writing is quirky, to say the least. I am a quirky person, probably, and I'm definitely a personal writer. I like to write it from the fact of where I come from and what I've been through. And it just seemed really relevant for the time, and especially what we're going through now as a world, this whole pandemic and the unknown and everything like that. Sometimes it's hard to see the sunshine through the walls. But I have a very small family. I have a husband and a 14-year-old son, and we were outside and we heard this huge crash. I assumed that maybe it was his dresser that fell forward from his many Xbox games. I was just assuming it was something like that. But my husband went in and shortly, nonchalantly, just came back out and he said, our son's ceiling just caved in his room. And I said, be serious. What was it? And I went in, and that's exactly what it was. There was insulation and concrete pieces everywhere. We had some torrential storms that we didn't know caused a hole in our roof. It had soaked insulation and made it like clay, and it just went everywhere. It ruined probably 99.9% of his room and the items in it. And to a 14-year-old boy, that is terrible. The first thing he asked about was his Xbox.
And he should.
As he should. I'm learning that's a very important thing. And I'm not real good at reaching out for help, but I was feeling helpless. I was having a hard time seeing the sunshine through the walls, even though we literally could see the sunshine through the wall. And so I put a post out there on Facebook. I'm known to be pretty transparent with my feelings and with who I am. And I was overwhelmed at the amount of people that reached out to me, not really knowing me in person, to drive hours and hours and hours to help me. And they were credit union people. They were credit union folks that have known me. Maybe they've heard me speak. Maybe I've been at a DE function with them. Some way or another, through connections, these people reached out to me, and one of them has never even met me in person and offered to drive hours and hours and hours to come help me with my home. And I just thought that needs to be told. The fact that credit union folks are epic people. And I'm just going to say it and throw it out there. We are epic people. We not only help people within financial walls, we know empathy well enough to take it outside the walls. And I think that is tremendous. And it helped me see the sunshine when I was having a hard time.
I love it. I think I've mentioned this quite a few times on other episodes, but I'm going to keep mentioning it because I just don't feel like it's getting enough light. But the amount of help that the credit unions are providing to this economy right now is not being talked about enough. It should be all over mainstream media. This is why our economy is keeping afloat, is because of credit unions and because of these small financial institutions. That's what they're doing. They're keeping people there and keeping them financially, ready for this terrible time that's going on. And the fact that you had so much support with not only everything else that's been going on, but then they're also offering their support in the middle of all that, right? That warms my heart. There needs to be more of that. More people need to be about helping people.
It's absolutely true. I mean, it really is going back to talk about foundations. The credit union movement really puts our feet on that foundation of people helping people. But it is the people who decide to do that outside of the CU walls that are the people we need in this movement. It doesn't stop at the entry and the exit. It keeps going. It becomes who you are. And if it doesn't become who you are, then maybe it's not for you. We really have to focus on the people helping people aspect being not only about finances. Because there are, how many times have you heard about folks that come in for a loan because they're having a hard time, and by the end of it, their whole life story because they just needed someone to listen. We are financial counselors, we're therapists, we're friends, we're confidants. We are the people that the people need to be those people outside of these walls. That's just a magical power we have within us that we need to keep on doing.
I remember when I was a kid, my mom raised 6 of us, single mom. And there's a few credit unions here in Utah that she would go to, and she would tag me along. And I remember sitting there for hours. And I remember her going through like her stories, and I remember being so embarrassed by it. But honestly, I look back at it now and I'm like, geez, to create that type of community in a business where people literally feel that comfortable in sharing their deepest personal parts of their life, it's pretty incredible that kind of trust has been created. I envy that a ton because I think that more businesses, more verticals in the business world need to be figuring that out.
Well, it's definitely our secret sauce. And the funny part about it is it's not even a secret. It's empathy. And yet other businesses and other places just can't seem to master it and can't seem to even implement it. So the fact that it's a quote unquote secret sauce that the recipe's out there, nobody is really grabbing it and using, is kind of humorous to me. When I was talking about when I started in credit unions, I was at a bank before that, not working, but just had my money at a bank. And when I had gone through hard times and I went to the bank, I'll never forget it. I wanted a small loan. It was about Christmas time. I'd had terrible medical problems. My son was little. I just wanted to give him a Christmas. So I asked for a really small loan. And so the banker did what the banker does, pulled my credit, and he came back in. And I'll never forget it. He sat down and he laughed. And he said to me, not only am I not going to give you this loan, you'll probably never own your own home either. I wasn't even in there for a home loan, but I pulled all of my stuff. I managed to not get teary there because I'm one of those tearies that when I'm happy, mad, sad, or glad, so you never know what's happening. But I went to the credit union in town, and I didn't even know what a credit union was, but I walked in, told the loan officer my story, and the difference was she got tears in her eyes. She felt my story. She felt my desperation. She felt it. She gave me the loan and I paid it off within a month. And a year later, I bought my own home and I sent a open house invitation to that banker. He did not come, but I was just a small note saying that don't judge people on their journeys because it's not for you to do. You can't judge people on their journeys based on a 3-digit number.
I love that. Well, listen, Nanci, we're getting to time. I wanted to leave it open to the audience to figure out a way to reach you. So,
Sure.
Let's say somebody wants to reach Nanci Wilson. How can they do that?
Well, I have a direct line here that is 701-757-3740. That comes directly to my desk. Or my email is Nanci. It's Nanci with an I, so I call myself Nanci. Nanci at University FCU.net.
Perfect. Nanci, thank you so much for joining us today on another episode of Banking on Experience.